Welcome to Redemption Radio, facing life's tough issues with therapeutic and biblical wisdom. Redemption Radio is a Christian counseling ministry. Our hosts and guests will share their experience and knowledge as they explore everyday challenges facing today's Christians. Redemption Radio is sponsored by Calvary Addiction Recovery Center, a leader in faith-based recovery for over 47 years. And now, the hosts of Redemption Radio, Jeff Durbin and Larry Solomon.
I don't know, about 8 reasons why you believe Paul was a mentally unstable person. Now tell us, why do you believe that? And why does this particularly, for you, give evidence that Christianity is some kind of a hoax?
Okay, we'll start with your first premises that I said. Why do I think Apostle Paul was mentally ill? That's the least I can say about Paul. He was mentally ill. I would say he's more like a psycho. Think about it. Justin, I don't know if you're married or not, but just say you're married. You're home sleep with your wife and kids.
Okay, I am married and I do have children, so you've set the scene well.
Okay, well, somebody kicks in the door, right? Middle of the night, boom, you go out. Here's Apostle Paul, man. Kicks you to the side, snatches your wife out the bed, chains her puts chains around her neck, ankle, feet, and drags her out screaming like a screaming pig into the night. And then you search for her. You find her days later, and she's being whipped in a public area. And you go, that's my wife, and you go to get her, and they push you back, and Apostle Paul stops the order for her getting whipped, and he has her killed. Now, would you think he was a sane person?
Well, welcome to Redemption Radio. Good morning. That's a way to wake you up. Interesting. So we are right here at Redemption Radio in the studios at KPXQ. I got in the studio with me, Luke Pearson.
Yo.
From Apologia Church. That's the ministry bear over there. We also have Joy Temby.
Hello.
And they've been waiting patiently in the studio here. We're on our second episode right now. We're recording with Atheist Brett Strong. You just heard him. That was him right there on the unbelievable radio program with Justin Briley. From London, I think is where they're from. And so that was their episode. We are doing a discussion with Brett. If you missed the show last week, you can get it on redemptionradio.podbean.com or go to defendthefaith.org to get the episode. So, Brett, welcome back, my friend.
How you doing, Jeff?
Dude,
Enjoy and your other buddy?
I am. I thought you said, am I enjoying my other buddy? I'm like, yes, I do love Luke.
Joy or Joyce? Or
Yeah, it's
what?
Joy. It's Joy because she is so full of it.
Yeah, Joy. Okay, yeah, Joy and the other
Joy,
guy.
not
Jeremy, I think, is it?
Yeah,
Jeremy, wow.
this is Luke. It's
Luke, okay,
yeah,
Luke, okay.
it's my big bear Luke. You can't miss Luke, dude. He's got the big old beard. He's
manly man.
Yes, that's right. Big dude. And so they're on the show, and so we were talking with Brett. We had a really lively discussion last episode. I'm sure we'll be able to sort of get the flow here as to how we're going to make this happen. So, Brett, we do appreciate you coming on the show with us. And so let's sort of open it up. We discussed in the last episode, we discussed things like that Brett sent me an email that said that he believes there is no morality and human beings are just animals. So we talked a little bit about that. You heard sort of a discussion he's had there with Justin on Unbelievable about the topic of morality. And so that was something that I said was peculiar to me as a Christian. We talked a little bit about laws of logic, and so we just wanted to have him on again, and he's graciously agreed to do so. And so I want to give Joy an opportunity to sort of start asking some questions to Brett. What do you got, Joy?
Hi, Joy.
Hi there. How are you doing?
Great. Thanks for asking.
Good deal. I guess my question isn't so much pointed as I just kind of want to go through an idea with you, just to make sure I'm tracking with you. What something that I saw that I was, wondering about. I'm wondering why the universal immaterial law of logic can exist, but why no morality? Because it seems that that's sort of a universal, also immaterial. And I'm just wondering where the distinction is drawn between those two things.
Well, I once thought there was morality, but the more I studied reality, I realized there is no morality. Because when I look at Christendom, black slavery, you had some Christians that were like, slavery is wrong, it's morally wrong. Then you had the South Christians who were saying, no, slavery is absolutely right and just. In the name of God and Jesus, slavery is just. So we got one group of people, Christendom, and two different results on morality. And same thing with the Indians. Christians came, the Pilgrims, eventually took over the Indians in a violent, vicious way. Now, here is a group of people, Christians, who claim to be morality's keepsaker. You know, they are morality. They know reality. I mean, they know morality, but yet they're violating viciously Indians in the name of God and Jesus. And then when I look at Christians, what they've done to the witch trial.
Okay, well, I guess my question is more.
I just can't see morality when people who claim to have morality do such vicious things, and they do it happily in the name of God and Jesus. So the morality, God and Jesus, like these people can't exist.
Okay, well, I'm gonna interrupt you there, and I just want to ask again. I guess more of a simplified question would be, I can't see the laws of logic, and I can't see morality. Why is it that one of them exists and one of them does not? I don't necessarily know how you can say that the one exists. I guess here's where I'm asking you to prove it to me, that the laws of logic can exist without me seeing them around the whole world, and yet morality cannot.
Well, see, it goes back to what I said in the first episode. It comes back to your own intelligence, your own belief and views. Now, if you want to believe
circular,
that
though, Brett.
morality exists, I'm okay with that.
Well, brother, that's
I'm saying from my point of view, I don't see I don't see morality. I don't see morality at all.
But you see what you just did there, Brett, just respectfully to you. What you did there when she asked you to justify it, you just essentially, it was very viciously circular there. In other words, well, I know there are laws of logic because I use my reason. That's circular. You know, you have to be able to justify the law of logic, justify it, justify the morality or lack of morality that you say exists in nature, in our experience, in our metaphysic, if you will. And so I just, you know, that I'm not sure that we're really, if you're quite understanding where we're coming from. We're asking you to actually give us a basis. When we ask you to justify something and you essentially say it's just that way, or when I say give me a justification for laws of logic and you say, well, I use laws of logic, so therefore laws of logic.
You mean justification, like where does logic, morality come from?
Say for, you know, yeah, in a sense that you would want to give a warrant, a justification for it, something that gives you the preconditions necessary for appealing to it. So, for example, if, you know, obviously, Brett, you're reasoning right now. We're reasoning right now. So no one's questioning whether people reason. But what we have to ask is, give us a justification that reasoning is necessary, valid, moral, anything. You have to give a justification. You can't just say, I'm doing it. So Christians don't operate that way. We would want to try to give an actual justification, something that's a cogent response as to how we can do it. And what I'm gathering, and I mean this respectfully to you, of course, is that you can't do that given your atheism. You just have to say, well, I'm doing it. And I would say to you, you're imaging God.
And that's okay, because, you know, I'm being realistic and you're being unrealistic, because when you claim God, you're claiming something that you can't.
You don't have a basis, though. You don't have a basis.
You're just appealing to fantasy, and I'm being realistic, saying we both agree we have reasoning, we both have logic. You're appealing to fantasy. I'm appealing to reality. I can't say
arbitrarily,
but
you can't justify it,
and all these things.
Yeah,
and
you're
claiming fantasy. So
well, but watch this. Let's stay there. We're going to stay one at a time.
Right?
One point at a time, though. We're going to make sure we're not jumping around everywhere. Just that point right there. When you say to me, Jeff, I'm appealing to reality, you're appealing to fantasy. Well, given that you can't justify laws of logic and show me how they're necessary, universal, invariant, and all those other things, you can't justify that. You've given me no even attempt to justify it, except to say that you're just doing it. Then what I would say to you, given your worldview, if I stepped into your worldview, I would say it's perfectly fine to believe fantasy. There's nothing wrong with believing fantasy, or you haven't justified even that I should even reason to truth, or that I need to hold to that as a necessary thing. Because all you're doing is telling us, I do reason, therefore there is reason. You see, we're saying, yeah, but how do you know your reasoning is valid? How do you know that it's...
Okay, I know my reasoning is valid because when it lines up to reality. See, when I reason within my mind, I'm still not sure if it's valid or not.
Did you see what you did there? You just reason in a vicious circle.
When I apply what I reason in my mind to reality, if it corresponds to reality, then my reasoning is correct.
Right.
If it doesn't, then it's wrong.
No,
like
I don't think you're understanding. I'm not sure you.
And believe with all my heart.
But you see what you just did there is you just showed your.
Then my reasoning is correct.
You just showed your ultimate.
Then I'm wrong.
Commitment.
Same with your God. You can read
Brett,
God.
Brett, one thing at a time.
You can't prove it.
One thing at a time. One thing at a time, bro. Okay. So what you did there is you just reasoned in a vicious circle. In order to justify your reasoning, you said that you use your reasoning to do it.
No, I don't. No. I said I use reality. I'm not using my reasoning.
So you use reality. So in order to
reality.
Okay, got it. Let's do that right there. You use reality. So in order to justify your reasoning, you use reality. So what you do is you actually go out and what do you feel for it? Do you go to look for where it's at and touch it? Is that how you justify your reasoning? You said you use reality. Are you talking like you use, say, matter? You stare at matter and you see if that's consistent with what's going on in your brain matter? Like, how do you mean you use reality to see if
reality says if I see my mind, I can fly. Well, I try it on reality. I jump off a table. And if I can't fly, then, okay, my reasoning is off.
But see, what you're doing there, all the while you're moving into this scenario, you're the whole time operating on the assumption that you can reason consistently, that there are contradictions.
It's not an assumption. It's a category fact.
Yeah,
because reality says,
I agree. I agree that you do reason as a categorical fact. Yes, you do.
If it's wrong, then it's wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So what you're appealing to there is you're saying that there are standards of truths and non-truths out there in reality, not dependent upon what's going on in my own brain. Right?
Exactly.
And so
100%.
Now justify that for me. Justify that in universal, immaterial, abstract, necessary law, given your rejection of your creator. Give me a justification for it. And don't tell me that you just do it, because then the rest of the show, what I can do to you is use your standard and tell you God exists. It's just that way. Give me a justification.
Justification for uniformity of nature?
No, justification for immaterial, universal, necessary, invariant laws, like laws of logic. Give me a justification.
Well, I've said it before in your last show, and I say it to everyone. I can't prove everything. I can't justify everything.
So you live by faith.
I just know that certain things is, and that is...
You live by faith.
What you just said, logic, uniformity of nature. I don't know how these things came about, uniformity of nature, whatever.
Yeah.
And neither do you. But you're
well, no, I can give you... I can see the difference, though,
you're
Brett.
You're being unrealistic.
Well, Brett, the difference...
Fantasy. I'm being honest. You're being
Brett,
delusional. And I love you, Jeff.
Delusional, yeah. Delusional is okay in your worldview. I'm an animal. You don't chastise chickens for being delusional. You don't chastise pigs for being delusional. So you calling me delusional using your worldview is perfectly okay. It doesn't really hurt in your worldview because chickens are chickens. Pigs are pigs. People are broccoli, I suppose. We're just animals. There are no oughts in your worldview, Brett. We'll see you after the break, guys. Right here in the studio, 1360 KPXQ. You can catch it at redemptionradio.podbean.com. Catch past episodes. We've done 2 now. This is our second episode with atheist Brett Strong from JesusIsAHoax blogspot.com. And in studio today with Luke Pearson from Apologia Church and Joy Temby. And Joy got to ask a little bit of a question there in the last part of the episode there. And so, Brett, we're going to go on now to some more questions. Just have kind of a dialogue here, my man. And I know Luke wanted to sort of just get to know you and ask you some questions too.
What's going on, man? This is Jeff's other friend, Luke.
Yes.
The beard guy.
Hey, man. Well, would you agree that reality is different in each individual?
In one's thinking, it could be. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
See, there's reality outside of mankind. There's a reality. But there's also the mind, the imagination. So anything can go on in one's mind. But reality is reality. So regardless of what goes on in one's mind, reality is firm, constant, and you could butt your head against it or you can go along with it. But reality is independent of one's thinking.
In the last segment, you said that you justify your reasoning by reality, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
I fight against reality.
So here's my question for you. Reality ultimately then is arbitrary depending on each person. It can be different. Reality can be different for me than it is for you.
No, reality outside of mankind is not arbitrary. Like, you cannot jump off the Empire State Building naked without dying. I can't either. 7 billion people can't.
Right.
That's not arbitrary. That's category.
That's because of uniformity in nature.
No one can do it. So whether you imagine it out in your mind, does not matter.
Okay.
No one can survive a naked off an Empire State Building.
Well, let me say this. Brett. So, reality for you, it's not okay for someone to come and harm your wife, correct?
Oh, absolutely. It's
okay.
My wife is too precious, worth too much. Amazing. Women are amazing. Like Joy is amazing. My wife's amazing. So
Joy is amazing.
No
Trust me.
Thank you.
Okay, but what if I was to say to you, reality to me is it's okay to hurt your wife?
Yeah, absolutely. It happens all the time.
Okay. So here's my point. I'm confused as to how you can, on one hand, live by universal laws, say logic, reason, uniformity in nature, and on the other hand, say, well, reality is arbitrary. It's different for him than it is for me. How can you say that with one hand, hold to those laws, and on the other hand, say things are arbitrary?
Well, our thinking is arbitrary. Reality is never arbitrary. Reality outside of man, that's never arbitrary. That's always firm, fixed, unmovable. Now, people's thinking is what does move back and forth, what's twist, what's arbitrary, what's subjective. It's our thinking. It's never reality. Reality is dependable. Our thinking can sometimes be undependable, as we know.
So you agree that your thinking can be diluted and undependable?
Oh, absolutely. It has been. Absolutely.
Okay.
I thought things like, oh, my wife would really love this as a present. I gave it to her, and she's like, I hate it. I'm like, wow, I was wrong. So I tested against reality in my mind. I said,
that sounds the story of my life, man.
That sucks. So therefore, I proved to myself that, okay, I was not thinking in reality. I misthought, and so let me try it again.
Well, I think that you're making a category error there, Brett, when you compare giving a gift to your wife, which she would subjectively like or not like based on her own subjectivity and preference, versus your appeal to reality that's constant outside of yourself, that's not subjective. And so it's a category error to compare your giving a gift to your wife, which she subjectively does not like, and you trying to operate in the world. And you said something I want to touch, Brett. You said that when you talk about reality and the universe and jumping off of a building, you said it's firm, it's constant, it's I think you said measurable, I think is what you did. Firm and constant. Now I have to ask you, and I gotta press you on this, because as a Christian, it seems like such an inconsistency, and I just want you to hear it. I mean this respectfully, because I'm no better than you. I'm no better than you, okay? I'm only where I'm at by grace. Good.
It's a love society.
So good. So with that, firm, constant. You can't jump off of a building. You'd be a moron. You're going to splatter on the ground, right? And so we say that, and I go, yeah, Brett, I believe that, but see, I have certainty about that. Because I know a God.
I have certainty too.
Well, no, here's the thing. Watch this. And this is what I'm getting at. When I look at the revelation of God, he's spoken in history. I look at God, who is the ultimate standard of good, who speaks truth. He comes in and he says, he upholds all things by the word of his power. He carries everything along to its intended destination. He's given to the universe a fixed order. And then I stand on that certainty and I go, well, that's why I won't jump off of a building. But in your worldview, you've got no guidance. You have no personal order and governance, no certainty. The word I'm looking for here is certainty. You appeal to uniformity in nature, and you would never jump off a building, dude, and I'd be right there with you. But the point is that in your worldview, you have no certainty at all about the claim that you made.
My worldview demands that there's certainty in reality. My worldview
based
says,
on what?
Yes,
based on what?
Constant.
Based on what?
You can't jump off a 10-story
How do you know? How do you know?
That's my worldview.
How do you know?
See, that because it's always been
Have
that
you
way,
jumped off every building?
Be that way.
Have you
and
jumped
if you
off?
Don't believe me, you can test reality.
Have you jumped off?
After,
have you jumped off? Have you
Right,
jumped off every
right.
building? Have you jumped off every building?
No.
Do you know everybody's experience who's jumped off every building?
Every single, I would say categorically, every single human being, 7 billion people cannot survive an Empire State Building.
But see, you got to answer this question though, Brett. Brett, you got to answer this question. Have you jumped off every building?
No, I don't need to.
So you haven't experienced that.
I I don't need to because
have you tested the testimonies of every person who's jumped off a building?
I don't need to because we're all the same. We're all humans. We're all the same.
But what you're telling me is that you know by experience.
I don't need to test anyone. I need to test myself in reality and say, okay, I can't do it. You can't do it, and I'm willing for you to disprove me.
But you don't know. Ultimately, what I'm showing you is certainty. Do you know the when I say the word certainty, what I'm getting at? What I'm saying is that you have no certainty because your test or standard for what you know to be true is based on your experience and observation, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, and based on your experience and observation, you have not jumped off of every building, and you have not investigated and interviewed every person who ever has. So you have no certainty in your worldview that nature is absolutely uniform and you can't jump off a building. All you know is that in the current tests I have, but I don't know that tomorrow it might not change because you don't have any certainty, an absolute foundation. A Christian does. You see, this is another example, I think, of you imaging God. You're living like a Christian.
Jeff, okay, you keep saying I don't have certainty, and I keep telling you, you are saying something, a statement about me that's not true. I have absolute certainty.
No, what I'm saying, Brett,
Empire State Building falls
you're not listening though.
Nature is that firm and unmovable.
And I asked you, Brett, you got to slow down a little bit. You got to slow down a little bit to listen to what I'm saying to you, though.
Okay.
I acknowledge that you said that, but then I asked you. I said, do you know things based on your experience and observation? And you said, absolutely yes. I said, given your standard of how you know things based on experience and observation, you have not experienced or observed every instance of a person leaping off of a building, so you have no certainty that in the future you can't jump off buildings.
Intelligence. I'm using my intelligence here.
As an animal.
Okay, I'm a human being. We're all human. No human being can survive a false Empire State Building.
Well, given your standard of experience,
I'll be the first one to
given
say,
your
yes,
standard,
you're right, I'm wrong. But as far as I know, and as anybody knows, no one can do it. You can't.
But things could change tomorrow, though.
So I can trust my intelligence.
We'll catch you after the break.
You're actually in the middle of the workshop right now, sleeping. This is your first lesson.
Pop, pop, bang.
Oh, you know it's good. Just seeing Pastor Luke enjoy his face when that just hit. I love having your own radio show. I get to pick my own music, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's great.
It is sweet.
Welcome back, Redemption Radio. This is Pastor Jeff Durbin, pastor at Calvary Addiction Recovery Center in Phoenix, Arizona. If you know anybody struggling with drug and alcohol addiction, give them a call. Come in and get free and experience redemption and freedom in Christ. And also having the studio with me, some peeps from Apologia Church. We got my fellow elder, Luke Pearson.
Yo.
And Joy Timby.
What up?
And also on the show, we got Brett Strong. Be strong. He's an atheist. He's my friend. I like him a lot. He's fun. And Luke, you still haven't given me a name yet. You got to think before the show is over. You got to give me like a strong, like a stage name.
I'm trying.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I'm waiting.
Walker.
I can't compete with Be Strong.
What'd you say, Brett? What'd you say?
Luke Walker.
No, give me. No, I'm looking for one from me though. Yours is like, "What's up? Be strong." You know, but mine is like.
Jeff Baby. Jeff B. Jeff Baby.
No, see, I knew you'd do that though, because you're just trying to diss me.
Jesus Baby, right?
No, see, I gotta.
Thank you, Jesus.
I gotta think of something. So we'll figure it out. So we're on the show with Brett Strong. We'll be discussing for 2 episodes the issues between atheism and Christianity. And so just to wrap up on my last thing, I'm going to give it over to these guys over here to sort of talk with Brett. You know, the thing I keep hearing you say, Brett, is a massive, strong commitment and appeal to uniformity in nature, and I'm very, very glad that you do that. I'm actually really excited to hear you so committed to it.
Absolutely.
But you see, what a Christian wants to show you with love and grace is that you're acting consistently only with what God's revelation gives us for certainty. Because here's what I'm saying, Brett, and maybe you can hear me say this. Bertrand Russell, famous atheist, and, say, skeptic David Hume brought up the issue of the problem of induction. The future would be like the past, right? What they were saying was, as philosophers, this is a real challenge for us because obviously nature is uniform. We appeal to it. We appeal to it every moment, every second. Can't do history, can't do science, can't do logic, you can't walk your dog without the uniformity in nature. But here's what their challenge was as non-Christians. But here's the problem. We all do this and we appeal to it in the future. But how come? And if you say, they would say to you, Brett, if you say because we always have in the past, and very likely it will be in the future, they would say to you, you're begging the question. You haven't justified it. So with all your appeals, Brett, to the uniformity in nature and your firm commitment to it, and the fact that you can't do anything in the world without the uniformity in nature and induction, how would you respond to Bertrand Russell and David Hume when they would challenge you? And they're not Christians. They would say to you.
Yeah, if they would say I'm begging a question, I'd say, fine. I'm okay with that. Because, tomorrow will be like today. I am firm. I don't even think about it. It is. It's just the way it is. And you can test reality tomorrow and see for yourself.
Can I do this then?
The thing is, you can't test God.
Can I do this?
Therefore, I'm speaking
to test God,
and you're speaking delusion when you mention God.
Okay, let's try two things.
No test for God.
Those two things you mentioned there, okay? Two things. Number one, you said, I'm doing it, so what? So I think your worldview is just reduced to absurdity. Because if I said to you, right, if I say to you, Brett, when you ask me to prove it, it's just that way. Jesus is God, dude. It's just that way. I don't need to prove it. It's just that way. Would you accept it?
Oh, absolutely. I accept it all the time. People say, I believe in God. I believe in a higher power. Fine.
But do you find that rationally intelligible?
Okay, no. The problem is not believing in a God or whatever. I have no problem with that. That's a beautiful thing, actually.
If you're okay with it,
God.
Brett,
but when you say
I got to point out one inconsistency. You got to listen for a second. I got to point out one inconsistency in what you just said. You said that if I used your standards, that I can just say it's just that way, like you do with laws of logic. You don't even bother to try to justify them. You don't try to bother to justify uniformity in nature. And I say to you, if I took your standard and I did the same thing to you, I said, I don't need to prove that Jesus is God to you. It's just that way. And you just said to me, you said that you would say, okay, but you know what? I got to point out a little bit of an inconsistency here. You have a YouTube video up where it's 20 minutes long telling Christians, prove it. Prove it. Prove it.
No,
prove it.
You're saying two different things. You're saying belief, whatever, God, or whatever. When you say God does exist, then I'm going to say prove it.
Right.
If you want to say I believe in God, that's fine.
No. Then we're missing each other. We're missing each other. We're missing.
But when you say my God is real and He does exist, I'm going to call you on it every time, Chuck.
Okay, ready?
Prove it, and you can't.
Well, watch this. That's exactly my claim to you. I'm saying to you that God is the necessary precondition for everything we're doing, including your asking me to prove it. The second thing I wanted to point out to you is when you say it's not testable, you just beg the question, because when you talk about things being testable, you assume uniformity in nature. To test things, the nature is uniform, rationally intelligible. When you say test it, you assume universal laws of logic. And you've already given us on 2 episodes the very fact that you can't do any of it. You just believe it by faith. We'll catch you after the break. Kind of exciting. It's fun. These are fun shows.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually have in the studio right now a very special guest. Vocab Malone just popped in.
What's up, man? How y'all doing?
Look at
Glad
that.
to be here.
Are you feeling that like me?
Yeah.
It's like nothing but bass just dropped in my ear.
Something about this mic.
Yeah, I think it is.
Something about this mic.
It's good. You got to keep that one from the rest.
Sleeve on it.
Yeah. I don't know what.
Lime 70s green.
Can we start this show over again and I'll get his mic? I'm just kidding. No, we won't really. I mean, some serious bass. Hello. You see like the guy in the old KYOT.
Wow, that's a whole nother level.
Yeah, for real. All right, so Vocab's on the show today. Let's leap right in now. We're on the last segment here. Joy wants to pop in and ask our friend Brett a question.
Okay. This
Hey,
kind
Joy,
of.
you mind if I say something real quick before you get started?
Sure.
I think the problem between me and Jeff is that I have my own worldview, and I think you're putting a lot of my worldview from other atheists on me. And that's not fair because I'm an individual. I think for myself.
No, I accept that. No.
My worldview,
Yeah.
So I think
No, I accept it.
I think time, chance, and manner on me, which I don't believe. So my worldview is different from other atheists. So I think that's the problem that the last show and this show, you put in other people's worldviews on me.
No, Brett, what
I
think you're missing here is that now I recognize that there are a variety of atheists. Atheism is not monolithic. You have atheists that are existentialists, atheists who are dualists, atheists who are naturalistic. I recognize all of that. But see, what I'm doing here, Brett, is I'm showing you where your rejection of God must take you. I recognize that you believe in uniformity in nature. You actually believe there's an immaterial realm out there, which is a type of atheist. I don't believe you're a naturalistic materialist. I wouldn't appeal to you as though you were. But where I will touch is where your atheism and rejection of God must bring you. I recognize there are a variety of atheists, and so I'm just dealing with where your atheism must bring you, like no basis for uniformity in nature, no ability to justify the laws of logic or morality. Now, see, even if you were a dualist type of atheist, you still can't justify it. If you're a natural,
I can't justify. I don't even try to justify.
Right, I know
logic,
you don't.
Uniformity or nature.
That's why. That's one reason I reject. That's one
right.
reason I would reject your atheism. It's. I think ultimately it ends up being irrational. But we'll give it over to Joy. Okay.
Okay.
Hi, Joy.
Hi. I guess I'll just this wasn't really the question I had planned, but I'll kind of go with what Jeff was talking about. I think that I'm totally tracking with you as an agnostic. I see where the atheist part comes in, where you say that there's no morality and so forth. But I definitely see you, you especially use the word reality as sort of like a transcendent, universal, objective thing. For me and for everybody in the studio here, I think that would be God. But I guess what we're just ultimately, if I can ask you again, where does that reality come from? Because I use God as my reality, as it were. But it's, as far as how I know that's true, it's revelatory, and I know that that's not necessarily something that everyone believes in, especially you, Brett. But I'm just wondering. I'm wondering. Where does your justification for this reality come from? How do you know that it is transcendent and objective, and how you're gaining a lot of knowledge from it too? I just want to know, where is that? Like, how do you know that that's something that you can trust to gain all of your earthly knowledge and live your life?
And that'll be accurate.
Yeah.
How do I know I can trust? Say that again, real quick.
I guess since you use the word reality, I'll just use it. How do you know that you can trust that sort of character reality?
Through my intelligence. I use my intelligence to navigate. As we all do, all animals, we use our intelligence to navigate our way through life.
How do you know it's valid?
Like I said, test it against reality.
How do you know your senses are valid?
Like if you touch a hot stove, right? You think, wow, that's hot. Okay, now you're intelligently enough. You will know next time, don't touch it, it's hot. I already learned a lesson.
Well, Brett, there's...
So I'm using my intelligence to get through reality. And yeah, I don't get everything right, but I get most things right. Not even most. The vast majority of my life, I've gotten 100% right.
Well, Brett, this reality that you're describing, it tends to be objective. And objective implies that there's some sort of standard inside of it, coming from it, and not necessarily, it's not subjective, it's objective. So how do you know that How do you know that reality? How do you know that reality is objective? How do you know that? Because you're subjective, so you can't just perceive that it's objective. That's
circular.
Impossible. Yeah, circular.
Yeah, ultimately circular.
Well, like once again, I don't know if I'm understanding your question correctly, but I get through life using my intelligence.
So
that's the time I get it right. Sometimes I get it wrong. So I just use my intelligence. That's what all animals do.
That's subjective. I think what Joy's
rats,
yeah.
Lions, so
yeah, Brett. I think
maybe
what
I'm not getting where you're coming from.
maybe not. That might be it, because what she's saying is that she's saying you're appealing to an objective reality that exists out there, but your appeal when she asks you to justify it, you get to only your own personal subjectivity, and so that's what she's getting at. So let's leap over to Luke now. Luke,
Sorry, Joy.
It's okay.
No, you've actually kind of led into my question I was going to ask, and I was just going to just straight up ask you: is there objective truth?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Like if you jump off the Empire State Building naked, you will die 100% of the time.
Why
How about if you have your clothes on?
Why
Will
are
you
my
survive?
clothes off? Now, Brett, I got to know why my clothes off are in this story.
Because, one could say, like, oh, well, if, you could jump off the Empire State Building, but have a Batman suit, and you could fly through the air or whatever, so I have to say naked.
Oh,
So
okay.
someone
Now
could
I'm
say,
tracking.
You've posed this question to people before, and they've found loopholes.
Somehow someone found a loophole. It's like, but if you had wings.
Okay, Brett.
I heard Joey laughing.
Okay.
Joey, you sound like a wonderful person.
So, Brett, you would say there's also objective certainty?
Objective what? I couldn't hear that.
Certainty.
Objective? Oh, well, yeah, absolutely. In reality, there is objective certainty.
Okay.
Which goes
How
back to
in the
about
world
It is
do you
certain
know that?
You'll die. So,
How in the world do
I
you know
agree.
that? How?
Given your atheism. Stand on your atheism. That's what we're asking.
How
do you know that there is objective truth, there's objective certainty?
Through my intelligence, through experience.
That's subjective.
Through my
That's-
five senses,
that's-
Okay,
through my reasoning.
do you understand the difference between objective and subjective?
Yeah.
Okay, explain
One
to me
is
the difference.
movable and one is immovable. Am I correct?
Well, no, it would more come down to terms of your own philosophical beliefs or preferences or instinctive, moves in the world.
That's subjective.
Well, yeah, the subjective, right? Exactly. So what I think Luke is asking you is how when we ask you, like, because it's interesting. You're a different kind of atheist. We recognize that. You're not a naturalist materialist. You're not like Dan Barker, who believes that we're cosmic broccoli and ants. Only that. Everything that's just crazy stuff. But so you're a different kind of atheist. I would say this. I think you're closer to an agnostic. You're an agnostic living like a Christian that I'm going to pray for, because I hope you come to Christ, Brett. But
That's a fairy tale.
Well, okay, fairy tales are okay in your worldview. There's no God. But in Luke's question, what he's asking you is that give us a justification that's not based on your own personal preference and your own senses, because you can't even prove that your senses are valid. You can't prove that.
I can prove my senses are valid. Absolutely.
How?
Like they're saying, well, what's that? That's a tree. I mean, that reality shows me if my senses are valid. See, what we got, Jeff, we got our five senses.
Right.
We got our
How do you know your five
skills,
senses
and
are
then we
valid?
got
How do you know
the
your
human
five senses are
consciousness.
valid? How do you know
Well,
your
I'm the
five
third
senses?
party.
How do you know your five senses and your reasoning is valid? And
Because
don't
when
watch
it lines
this.
up to
Watch this.
reality,
Don't
it's valid.
use your senses and reasoning to give me the justification based on your own subjectivity. You got to give me some sort of other basis that's outside of you.
Brett, let me ask you this way:
reality is outside of me. That's my justification. It's always
It's
reality.
just that way. There's another one of those just that ways.
Brett, would you agree that there is a subjective reality and an objective reality?
Give me an example.
Well, because here's why I'm asking you, because every time you talk about using your reality as proof of your reasoning, and we say, okay, how do you know that? How do you prove that? You always give a material example of something, and you say, well, if I jump off the Empire State Building, I'll die. That's a material, universal thing. But my point is that in your own mind, subjectively, reality is going to be different in each individual's mind.
Absolutely.
But every time I ask you to give a proof of that, you give a material example. I'm asking you, how do you prove subjectively that that's true?
Subjectively, that
each person's reality is different subjectively, without giving me a material example of something you can go test. Like my I guess what I'm getting at is for love, an example of love. You love your wife.
Yes.
Okay, but that could be different in someone else's mind, and that's not a material thing that you can measure. That's not a material thing you can test.
So how do you?
So then, how do we test that? How do we know?
You don't test that.
How do we know?
If I say I love my wife, she can't test that. She just has to believe by faith. She can't test my love.
Okay.
Now, she can look at my the way I treat her, the way I honor her, the way I love her, the way I take care of her, and assume that I love her. But she can never truly know if I love her or not. That's only within me. So that's a trust factor. When it comes to love, that is a trust factor. Absolutely. Like Jeff Durbin, you could be scheming on Joy. Joy would never know. Because that's within you. Joy has to take faith that you're being honest, respectable. I mean, respecting her and all that. So these things are universal too. My wife will never know for sure if I love her, but she can believe it. That's good enough.
Jeff and Joy aren't married. Just so you know, I'm not sure if you.
No, I'm saying
I got you.
friends,
Okay.
he doesn't know what he's
Okay.
thinking.
Well, hey, this is Vocab. We're gonna broadcast a show with you, Be Strong, in about a month here. And so I want to ask something that sort of relates to what they've been talking about today, but that would also get into the topic we're going to do, which is Be Strong. How would you say we should, or you specifically, how do we do history? That is, what is your historiography? How do you approach issues of historical evidence? How do you weigh them? And how do you know that method that you lay out is a good one, a reliable one?
Well, it goes back to the show I think we're going to do. History is done. J.P. Moreland, history is done through hypothesis. You take the data you find, you take the manuscripts, whatever, and you form a hypothesis. That's J.P. Moreland, verbatim. That's how ancient history is done. Ancient history is a hypothesis. You take what we have, and then you form your hypothesis. Even William Lane Craig said that imagination plays an important role in reconstruction of Jesus. So hypothesis, imagination, that's all ancient. Mike Licona even said that even some of his peers, a minute amount, but Mike Licona was on your show, said that some of his peers say that ancient history study is fiction. It's all interpretation. It's all in your mind.
What do you think? Do you think we can know anything about ancient history?
99.99%. It's all hypothesis. You can't know the past. That's just the way it is. The past is infected with a hypothesis. I'm just pointing that out to you.
What about 5 minutes ago?
5 minutes ago?
Yeah.
As far as what?
Can you know what has happened 5 minutes ago?
Oh, yeah, within my own life, absolutely. Absolutely.
So do you have a time frame of where you view history becomes unreliable in your mind?
Well, when there's no original letters, nothing close to an original.
How do you define
original
letter?
In our court system, we can't even do court when we're talking about no eyewitnesses, no originals. You can't even convict. You couldn't even bring a court case in America, in any court, with those types of things that I just said. If you don't have living eyewitnesses, original content, certified copies, you can't do court. So
okay.
I'm just going along with the court system.
All right. Okay. That'll tie into our show, so I hope people can tune in and listen to that.
Yeah, and when's that going to air, Vocab?
Like July 17th or something.
All right, so catch
like
Backpack Radio.
15th, something, yeah.
It's backpackradio.com, right, or iTunes?
Yes, backpackradio.com and on iTunes,
Okay,
yeah.
you can catch the episode that's Brett Strong. Be Strong's going to be on with Vocab alone on Backpack Radio. On what the title of the show is?
I think we're going to just say, is the NT Jesus pure fiction? ?
Right, because
that's what he says in his book.
Right, exactly. So, Brett, thank you so much for being on the show, man. It was good talking with you, getting to know you.
Hey, and one thing I want to say,
the show's wrapping up. We have about 20 seconds left.
I want Christians to be Christians. I want Joy to love Jesus and God. Beard Man, love Jesus and God.
Beard Man.
I want all Christians to be Christians. Just
I got a nickname.
The Bible says you should do
Luke's the only one that got a nickname.
He has a million nicknames.
He got a Beard Man. I got nothing.
That's good because Be Strong. We want you to be a Christian as well.
Amen. God bless you guys.
Thank you for listening to Redemption Radio, a Christian counseling ministry. We appreciate your thoughts and comments. Join us again next week when our hosts and guests share their experience and knowledge as they explore everyday challenges facing today's Christians. Redemption Radio is sponsored by Calvary Addiction Recovery Center, a leader in faith-based recovery for over 47 years. To reach Calvary Addiction and Recovery Center off air, please call 602-279-1468. Beginning the recovery process is as simple as a phone call. That's 602-279-1468.